You want to get the right things done for your security program. Sounds simple, but what are the right things for you? What does done mean? And how are you going to get there? Rapid7 realizes more than anyone how hard this can be. While Rapid7's Insight platform offers you industry-leading vulnerability management and detection and response solutions, their focus is on understanding where you are so that they can help you get where you're going. Visit securityweekly.com/Rapid7 to get started. Security can't solve crucial problems when they have to wade through thousands of alerts a day. With ServiceNow, you can easily prioritize and respond to your most crucial business threats. That way you can go from overwhelmed to under control. ServiceNow brings security, risk, and IT together on one platform. Learn more at securityweekly.com/ServiceNow. Well, welcome back, everyone, to Enterprise Security Weekly. InfoSec World 2020 was scheduled for March 30th through April 1st at Disney's Contemporary Resort. Disney will actually be closed during that time, so it has been rescheduled for June 22nd through June 24th, and it will be at a different location. Our discounts still apply, 15% off if you visit securityweekly.com/ISW 2020. And where is Disney? Where is it?
Coronado Springs.
Coronado Springs. I knew there was a Springs.
Coronado Springs Resort, and our Container Security Summit is that Saturday, June 20th, the Saturday before. Similar schedule, but obviously now in June.
Gotcha. Tod Beardsley is the Director of Research for Rapid7. He has over 30 years of hands-on experience and monitors much of the internet. I think the two projects that you do at Rapid7 give you a good pulse on the internet and certainly attacks. So, Tod, welcome.
Hi. Hey, Paul. How are you?
I'm good. And speaking of attacks, I wanted to first talk a little bit about some of the recent Microsoft Windows remote code execution vulnerabilities.
Yeah.
And I'm sure you're seeing some increased, traffic and indicators on your side.
Yeah. So like you mentioned, we do run a couple of kind of internet monitoring services here at Rapid7. We run one thing called Project Sonar, where we affirmatively go out and scan the whole internet, almost all the whole internet, IPv4 space, obviously. And we take a look at what services are out there and all that. But we also run a honeypot network. It's about 250 or so honeypots spread all around the world and every cloud hosting provider you can think of. And from that, we can see kind of the mass undirected, scanning, target acquisition kind of activity that from bad guys. And it's all up. It's all pretty much every protocol we pay attention to. We have seen an increase over the last 2 weeks to a month or so. We saw a recent uptick in SMB scanning. Mm-hmm. We have got a brand new SMB bug to deal with. It's always been pretty high. That's pretty. I mean, it's been kind of bread and butter. Vulnerability exploitation is over SMB exposed to the internet. But yeah, we've got a new SMB bug, which affects SMB v3, which I'm a little worried about, actually, which I think is becoming like a less popular opinion. So I'm happy to be wrong, but there's remote code execution possibility with SMB v3. Has to do with like the compression on SMB. SMB is a kind of an everything protocol for Windows. Right. It's a file share, remote admin, print services. It does everything, right? This affects only the most recent Windows. And so that's kind of like the upside, right? Like if you're on
people haven't upgraded and therefore they're not vulnerable, which is weird.
Hey, that's nice, right? And the people who have tend to be the sort that have like automatic updates, right? Like it's hard to get out of Windows 10 updates, for example. You have to kind of go out of your way to do that, which is good. The downside is that there's a bunch of Windows in the world. And I worry about the fact that we're in this new for many, at least, work from home environment for at least the next few weeks. I think a lot about people who have problems, like gamers who have problems like getting their over the internet games working, and every troubleshooting thread starts off with like, well, disable your firewall.
Yep.
And I worry that a similar sort of home, distributed, kind of amateur IT hour is going to be going on with lots and lots and lots of companies around there. When people like try to use their like old crusty VPN connector that needs like special, magic on their firewall, the first troubleshooting step is often turn off your firewall, right? And so like I worry about like a sudden appearance of a whole lot of vulnerable Windows machines, especially in the face of Eternal Blue, which is like 3 years old, and then this new SMB v3 compression bug.
Right.
So that's not good.
No, certainly not. Yeah, because I think that all of these workstations, laptops, right? That could be like I have a desktop at work, and I also have a laptop, but I really don't use my laptop for much. But now I got to take it with me because I'm going home to work, and it hasn't been updated. And like you said, something's not working, so I disable my firewall. Now I'm in a hostile environment at my home because I'm with my kids who are gaming or whatever, right? And they're downloading stuff, or I'm connected to someone else's Wi-Fi, in the parking lot.
Yeah, and that's the thing too, right? Like you're now in a network where you're not surrounded by your fellow knowledge workers. You've got kids, and not everybody obviously, but a lot of people now are working in an environment where they have kids who probably have more access and kind of intimacy with your router and your firewall settings than maybe you do, right? Because maybe you do most of your work at home or at work, and then you come home and you dork around on streaming TV, and that's about it. I fully envision some people having rude surprises when they come home when their kids, being gamers, have turned off firewall things, drop things into a DMZ zone, things like that, just to get things working temporarily. And there's as they say, there's nothing as permanent as a temporary fix. So,
right.
I remember my 16-year-old daughter when she first hacked my Wi-Fi router to give herself access after hours after I shut it off. I was a proud dad.
Good for her.
Good for her. But to your point, it puts remote workers potentially, in a more hostile environment than they thought.
Well, it's interesting. We talk about network segmentation, and those that know how to do that at home are probably already doing that and have been doing that, right? But now you take the masses that largely aren't security people with 20 years of experience in networking, and you put them in their home and you say, oh, you should really have some network segmentation. Like, what does that look like on commodity hardware today? Probably not very good.
Well,
it's not bad.
It's one thing you can do with at least the current crop of like home routers. If you're the sort that you've gone out of your way and bought your own router and you're not using like the ISP's gear, so like a Belkin router, or Linksys, or D-Link, or something like that, right? One thing you can do is, actually make use of that guest network. A lot of these routers come with 2 or 3 radios on them.
Yep.
One of them is dedicated to a guest network that you're supposed to hand out to guests. But like for me, I use that guest network, and I've named it IoT Dumpster Fire, and I have dumped every IoT device I have on that. So like thermostats and TVs and stuff like that, things that don't ever have to talk to anything else locally. They only talk to the internet. Put them on that network. And that gives you some like cheap and easy network segmentation that virtually anyone can do if you know your router password. If you don't know your router password, today's a good day to reset that.
Figure it out.
Agreed.
Yeah, I mean, I have a D-Link router at home that I have like all the TVs and my kids' devices on, but that's on a separate subnet from my office and my home studio when I'm at home. And so I isolate those and try to keep that traffic isolated. So it's not impossible to do at home, and
it's not impossible. Like the guest network is a good thing for most people because it's not very intimidating. It's like, I get it, right? Like I get what a guest network is. Now you can go bonkers. If you've got a lot of time on your hands these days, learn some networking.
Right?
Grab a new router, get your WRT or OpenWRT on, and go to town. Like OpenWRT has real VLAN and real segmentation and all like some pretty powerful stuff in there for consumer gear.
Todd, I wanted to ask you, with Project Sonar, have you looked at the open and available services in the past couple of weeks and how that might have changed? Because I would expect to see potentially some more RDP, which is very dangerous to be open to the internet, more so than before.
Not super great. Yeah.
Yeah.
We are, so it's early days, right? We do run our scans on a periodic basis. We'll be publishing some stuff on this for sure, like in, I don't know, 3 months or so, when we really get a track of it. But yeah, like we can see things starting to creep up now. We're also looking at DNS, and we see like suddenly a lot of DNS names that have the string VPN in them.
Yes.
That weren't there before, or the string test, which is even
more concerning, right?
Yeah, that's nail biting stuff, right? Like, so test staging also shows up. But yeah, like we can see more VPN popping up, which is as you'd expect. We want this, right? But it also means like this might have been deployed in a hurry and maybe not a whole lot of testing. And so
we know how that goes with security when infrastructure is stood up in a hurry.
Yeah. You know, and don't get me wrong, like IT people, they are, you know, real American heroes right now. They are trying to get everybody online in at least quickly, ideally safely. But there are a lot of questions that need to be, you know, addressed as this goes on. I mean, it's a crisis for sure, but it's not a crisis that's going to go away anytime soon. So we do have time to review security settings, things like, you know, split tunneling. Are you doing that, and are you doing that on purpose? Are like two questions, not just the one question. But we are seeing kind of an uptick on, you know, all the things you'd expect. So like RDP. I haven't seen an uptick on PPTP, which is good because that is like old-timey VPN stuff.
A dumpster fire for sure.
There's still plenty out there. You know, it's like, but it's that kind of thing, right? Like it's VPN and it works, and so why break it, right? Like it's been going for 20 years. We haven't really had any problems with it, so that's kind of the bummer when it comes to reliable yet insecure software.
Yeah, and it's the bummer when it comes to VPN too, that requires a configuration or software on the client. You can't just upgrade the server end. Now you got to upgrade everyone's clients.
And it's a whole thing, right? Yep. And you got to, a lot of times I know there are plenty of enterprises where like you get your client upgrade when you connect to the real network, to the real wired network. Well, that's not going to happen for a lot of people. So it's a whole nother you know, problem for IT people. And so my heart goes out to you guys. I used to be one. I'm just a researcher. I don't even have a real job anymore. But you know, IT work is not easy, but we can do it. We did it before with Y2K. There's a reason why Y2K wasn't a thing. It was because of you. So I'm positive we can get through this one as well. With all the smarts that are going on in IT, just try not to go super duper fast, and keep an eye on security, because you know the bad guys are. So.
Yeah. And speaking of keeping an eye on security, I think it's interesting, and I've been talking with some of my friends about this, how if you have security products that use any type of AI, right? Even if it's not even real AI, right? There's basically logic and decisions that are being made inside of your security software to monitor things. When we have this huge fundamental shift that everyone was in the office one day, and now they're all working remotely over VPN, how does that impact your models and various monitoring tools that are looking at the security events?
Yeah, so that's I'm positive people are seeing that now, where you take your user behavior analytics technology, right? Like this is the thing that says, we have certain number of employees are remote, most of them are local, they log in between 8 and 4, whatever. Anything outside that, flag it, and that's a red alert. Well, everything's a red alert right now. So
which means
take your UBA
escalation
rules and put them in the garbage.
Right. Now think about that, because most of these systems now are forcing people for additional credentials, right? Because they see this anomalous user behavior. So now it's like, oh crap, where's my token?
And it might be something bad, right? It might be like a lockout. It might be just like, and honestly, like I imagine a lot of IT security administrators are just turning them off. So all that cool fancy gear you just bought at RSA, well, sorry everybody. But you can train. We're in a retraining phase right now for UBA. Some products are better than others when it comes to tweaking those. We make a UBA product. I'm not going to talk about that. I'm not a sales guy. But it's part of our Insight platform. Check it out. But there are, this is a time where I imagine that if you had some pretty strict UBA rules, you're getting a lot of false alerts.
Right.
So,
Right.
Which equals turning the thing off.
Yeah.
I mean, that's one of the challenges with AI in general, I think, right? Is you need a model, you have a supervised model, you kind of train the system, and then we get into an environment like this that is completely unsupervised and
Yeah.
completely out of norms. How do you retrain the model fast enough so that you don't lock all your users out and continue to be productive?
It is a lot of support calls. I do, and I'm, by the way, no shame in turning the thing off if it's like
Right.
alerting, your face off.
It's not helping you if it's
you
doing
have
it anyway.
to,
Right.
Yeah.
But it also means like it's probably not actually broken. It's just dumb now, right? And so it has to get reset and retrained. And so this may mean like a call into your vendor is like, hey, how do I do this? Now they're dealing with this a lot. Everybody who sells these things, if they're not staffing up already, like they're kind of out of the game. But it is possible to get back into like a trained environment. Like people still should be working work hours. I mean, that's still going to be like real fuzzy for a while because again, like people who are not used to working from home, they can go one of two ways, right? Like they can do, they're productive 2 hours a day or they're productive 16 hours a day. It is super easy to overwork from home.
Yeah, it is.
When you have if you don't have good discipline, you don't have division. Now, kids home from school, that's one thing. But even so, like I've seen the guidance from the SEC, the work at home guidance. Go Google it. It's hilarious because it assumes it imagines a world where your kids are like robots that only operate in certain hours. and you're looking at a 5:30 a.m. to 11 p.m. day to carve out all the home schooling stuff and maintaining your kids too. But it's bonkers. So people will be working weird hours for probably a while. So that's something to keep in mind if you're in this UBA world. It's still a cool technology and it still should be used, but it's going to take more care and feeding than you probably expected 2 months ago.
Todd, where would you go to compensate for that loss? Are there other areas in your defensive strategy that maybe you should pay more attention to if you're going to kind of not be able to rely on UBA or other similar
It's hard,
technology?
right? Like, well, first off, I would make the, like, if you have a UBA like tied to a lockdown, so like maybe you have an account lockout or like challenge for a second factor, make the lockout short and the temporary auths longer. That way you're not hurting the users too bad. Like even an account lockout of like a minute, or something like that. And I'm thinking more along the lines of like bad passwords and stuff like that. Because by the way, everyone has forgotten their passwords because they're on different computers now.
Yep.
Account lockouts of like a minute are disastrous to someone who's trying to brute force because minutes add up real fast, but not terrible for like legitimate users, right? Something along those lines is helpful. You have a bunch of historical logging. Even if you're turning off your active defense, you still have passive defense. And so you have all these passive logging that you can use in your sims and to inform your UBA kind of after the fact. It's like, okay, well, so definitely keep up on those, keep collecting those, keep shoving them in. You are in a retraining period now. But other than that, that particular technology that we put a lot of stock in as an industry, I don't see that being super great right now. It'll be great again. But I mean, as far as like other controls, like you can still kind of geolocate people. Like you can, if you're the sort of enterprise that, blocked out, like, well, we don't have any European employees logging in. So like, we don't have to, manage that traffic. Like that rule still works, right?
Right.
So there are still controls that work, at least that are location based, maybe not so much time based.
Yeah. Agreed.
Yeah. Are we shifting the workload to the analyst now in the SOC a little bit through some of these passive means since we can't be as active as we once were? Is that putting a little more burden on the SOC analysts during this period right now?
I think so. Yes, which is unfortunate. Sorry, analysts. You guys are great. Stiff upper lip and all. But I do think we can take the opportunity too to like kind of, when it's hard to say like, well, I mean, take a look to see what you can automate because that itself takes time. But, that's the kind of time that you can spend, now, and then that pays off dividends later, right? Like if you can automate anything you can automate that's like low effort and high impact, like you want to shove that in some kind of automation routine. And then that moves everything else, that moves everything to the left, right? So like if you can automate like your account unlocks, right? For example, just automatically unlock accounts after a minute or 90 seconds or something. Like that's something you don't have to be touching anymore. And now you can start dealing with, maybe your higher effort lifts. So.
For sure. Awesome. Well, Tod, thank you so much for appearing on Enterprise Security Weekly. Listeners can go to securityweekly.com/rapid7. A full suite of tools. I think much of our audience is like, oh, Rapid7, they do vulnerability scanning, but they do so much more today. Todd, you mentioned the
UBA. Loads of stuff.
Yeah. And the Insight product line has added some fantastic features that could probably help you through this crisis, quite literally. So again, visit securityweekly.com/rapid7. Todd, thank you so much.
My pleasure, Paul.
And with that,
wash your hands.
We will wash our hands as soon as we conclude the show. Thank you, everyone, for listening and watching. Let's see you next time.